Hey there, I'm Amy from thecrazycraftlady.com. Have you seen these viral Dollar Tree stacked pumpkin wood cutouts? They have them out this time of year just in time for Halloween. We're going to transform this thing both front and back. So this is a 2-for-1 craft. We're getting 2 projects out of 1 to make a reversible fall to winter project. Let's get making. Okay, we're going to start right out. These are the paint colors I use. Take a screenshot if you can. Some are matte folk art paint, some are chalk paint. I kind of use them interchangeably. I don't really know the difference. I think they both kind of look the same to me. Anyway, so I started with the back of my little pumpkin topiary there. And I'm just going to take a pencil and sketch out the arches of the pumpkin, like the 3 little sections. I know the bottom pumpkin has 4 sections, but the 2 other ones I just sketched 3 sections. And then we're going to paint each one a different color so they stand out from each other. So for the middle pumpkin, I started with this cream. It's called Antique White, and I'm really loving it. I know I normally do my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint, but this is more of a cream, not as stark white. I just bought this giant container at, I think, Michael's. And I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of it over the Christmas and winter crafting season. So you just put that base coat down to begin with. And then you're going to layer in some of, I think this is Waverly chalk paint in the color Castle. And you want to follow the arches of the pumpkin. Now, I tried to do more dark on the left and light on the right. So imagine if sun was hitting it to give it more dimension. But just do like an oval in the center and kind of like a C shape on either side to follow the pattern of the curve in the pumpkin. And then next up we're going to do green. This is Waverly chalk paint in the color Moss. My go-to, I use it on everything. And we're going to do the same thing. So a base coat of your base color and then an accent color on top of it. So for this I did the darker Waverly Moss color, and then I came in with this light green. And once again, you're going to follow the arches. I did more light green on the right-hand side and less on the left-hand side. And it's just, if you can paint a C shape or like a parentheses, you can paint this pumpkin. And then finally, we're going to finish with Waverly chalk paint in the color Pumpkin, which I really like, but it's a little too bright for me. I don't love it. So we're going to tone it down. But first, you can see I'm kind of struggling here to like follow that arch pattern. It all worked out, but I had to give it a few tries. I wasn't super happy with my first go, but that's fine. But just paint that whole thing orange, but work quickly because you don't want it to dry. And then we're going to mute it down with just some pink paint. Anything pink, like a light pink. This is like Barbie pink, whatever. And if you've been seeing my recent fall crafts, I do this quite a bit to mute down my orange. Just so it's not so bright. I don't like the bright orange. And then I wanted to add a little bit more texture, so I grabbed more of that light gray chalk paint. And I definitely did more on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side, but just a very little bit. A little goes a long way here. You could also use a little bit of green. And then I cut the top off, that little hanger there, and just painted brown. It's kind of hard to tell, but I did layer like a darker brown and like a lighter gray, but do whatever you like, just paint the pumpkin stem. Most of it's going to get covered up by a bow anyway, but you obviously don't want like the cardboard showing, so paint it brown. And then we're going to decorate the other side like a snowman. So I took a giant scrap of cardboard and I laid my little pumpkin topiary right on it, and I took a Sharpie marker, traced just the bottom pumpkin. So we're going to work one section at a time. Stay with me, trust the process, I swear it's worth it. I grabbed my Fiskars heavy duty craft shears and I cut out just the outline of that bottom section of pumpkin out of the cardboard. This is like really thick cardboard, so you definitely need heavy duty scissors or use a thinner cardboard. This was like a box that a piece of our sectional sofa came in, so it was like a really heavy duty box. Now just lay this on the back of your little pumpkin topiary cutout thing on the Halloween side to make sure that it fits nicely and like you followed your outline correctly. Then you're going to want to trace the middle section. But you'll notice I angled my pumpkin before I cut it out because we're going to follow the corrugated pattern and we want it at all different angles. So trace the sides, then trace a curve at the top and the bottom. So unlike the pumpkin, we want this just to be just a snowman, so just a circle, just little spheres. So you're going to cut out that middle section, but then you don't want it to overlap, so then you have to trace that curve where the middle section and the bottom section meet so that you can cut out a little tiny semicircle from the top of that bottom section of snowman so that your cardboard cutout pieces just lay flush with each other. You don't want them to overlap. You want everything to be flush, flat on your little base there. And then for the third section, for the top, once again, angle it at a different angle. Trust the process. You'll see once we remove a layer of cardboard and see the corrugated pattern, why we're angling this. Once again, trace it with a Sharpie and cut it out. And so here we have our 3 sections of snowman. Grab a scrub rag or 2 and some water, and you're going to wet the top layer of the cardboard and then just lay the wet washcloth right on top and let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. It's going to soften up that top layer of cardboard so that hopefully, if we do this correctly, you should be able to very easily just peel that top cardboard layer right off, revealing the wavy corrugated pattern underneath. And so now you're going to see here the reason why we angled our little pumpkins there while we traced was so now instead of it being all matchy-matchy, each section of the snowman, the corrugation goes at a different angle. You don't have to do this, but that's how I did it. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to see that orange between the sections of the snowman. Looking back, I don't know if this was totally necessary, and I also messed it up a little bit, which you'll see. But I just took some of that cream antique white matte paint, and I just painted around the edges where I thought some of that orange from the back would show through in the cracks between my sections of cut cardboard. I don't know, you could maybe skip this step. It wasn't as vital as I thought it was gonna be. But then you'll see where I messed up. So I'm gonna hot glue each of the 3 sections of cut cardboard onto the backer. And look, I didn't even paint the right spot. You can still see orange. Like, way to go, Amy. Nailed it. So when I painted, I just had to fill it in. No big deal. So like I said, this step was extra time and waiting for paint to dry that maybe was not necessary. But just hot glue all 3 of those cardboard sections in place. And here's your little start of a snowman. And then it's time to paint. So here you can see I'm filling in that little section where the orange showed because I painted the wrong area. And then I just used that antique white paint and a 1-inch flat paintbrush. And I did a combination because of all the texture from the cardboard. I did a combination of a stippling motion and a brush motion. So you're not going to get perfect coverage, and we're going to layer another coat of paint on top of this. So it's totally fine if some of the cardboard shows through, but feel free to leave as much or as little bit of that cardboard poking through as you like. This could be super distressed, or you could paint it totally white, your choice. But after I did that first coat of antique white, I was like, this is a little too cream. My snow looks a little yellow and sad. So I went back in. The cream paint was still a little bit wet, and I just added plain white, it's like linen white Rust-Oleum chalk paint. Any bright classic white chalk paint or matte paint would work. And once again, combination of the brush and the stippling motion. I had someone ask on a recent video why I use chalk paint instead of acrylic craft paint. I prefer the matte finish. I think it dries faster, and I feel like I get better coverage with a single coat of paint than I do with acrylic paint. It's just personal preference. If you wanted to do just acrylic craft paint on this, you totally can. In most of my projects, unless you're painting like unfinished wood or furniture, you can substitute acrylic craft paint instead of chalk paint. No problem. But I use what I have in my craft stash, and that is usually chalk paint. And so once all of that white was painted, it's time to make our embellishments. So I grabbed a couple pieces of cardboard that I had already peeled the top layer off, and I started by cutting a little like oval carrot shape for obviously a nose. And I went back with the same orange paint that I had used on the other side for the pumpkins. And I just painted that little carrot, a little bit of orange, and then a little bit of pink to tone it down. And then I grabbed a scrap of black cardstock. I cut 2 little rectangles and then secured them together with a loop of painter's tape and cut 2 ovals for eyes. I didn't need them to be the exact same size and shape, but I wanted them to be similar enough, so that's why I taped the 2 layers of cardstock paper together. My first go was like, oh, those are a little too ovally, so I ended up trimming is not a word. Trimming them down to be a little bit more circle and less oval. And then I also made a little smile. I wasn't sure how I would be able to paint a smile onto that corrugated texture without it looking like really wavy and wonky. So I just cut the thinnest little semicircle line out of that black cardstock paper that I was then able to just hot glue right in place for a smile. I ended up making it way too big at first and it looked really cartoonish, so I trimmed it down significantly. And now it's time to make a top hat. So I just took another piece of that corrugated cardboard and I kind of just eyeballed with a Sharpie the curvature of the top of the snowman's head. And I cut this little rainbow shaped arch of cardboard. And I just cut that, and then I cut rounded edges on each side of that little rainbow piece. At first it gave major sailor vibes. I'm like, oh my gosh, my snowman joined the Navy. But just trust the process, stick with it. It does end up looking like a top hat once we make the second piece, which is going to be kind of like an hourglass. So I traced, once again, that arc from my little first cut piece for the top hat. And then I kind of sketched out kind of an hourglass shape onto the cardboard, and I cut that whole thing out, and that made the top part of the top hat. So the top hat is 2 pieces. It's, the brim and then the hat piece. And then we're going to paint all of that black. So any plain black paint you got. And once again, I did kind of a combination of the stippling and the painting motion. It doesn't have to be complete coverage. It can look a little distressed and weathered. Set that all aside to dry, and then it's time to assemble everything just simply with hot glue. So you're just going to hot glue the carrot on, the 2 little coal eyes. I will link to this fine point hot glue gun because that came in really handy with the thinnest little line of paper for the mouth. I kind of set it off at an angle so it wasn't like perfectly straight on. Then I hot glued the 2 pieces of my top hat together, but I'm not going to hot glue it to the project because you don't want it to look funny when it's the pumpkin side showing. So we have to make this removable. The way I did this is I took 2 little Velcro command strips. I trimmed them down so that they were completely hidden by that little stem piece on top. So secure that little 2-sided Velcro piece in place, and then you can very simply attach the top hat, and now it's removable. So the Velcro will hold it in place when it's on display for winter, and then you take it off when you display it for fall. And then Mr. Snowman needed a scarf because he was looking cold. So I just grabbed some red and cream check ribbon, use whatever ribbon you like, and I wrapped it around his neck. Yes, I know this is going to show on the back of the pumpkin side. We will fix that later. So just start by hot gluing a length of ribbon around the snowman's neck, and then leave 2 tail ends. We're going to cut a little kite tail, so fold it in half and trim at a 45-degree angle. And there's your little scarf. And then I'm just going to very carefully heat seal the ends here with a lighter, just so that over time the ends of the scarf don't fray. And then we need to make a bow. I don't need to make a full bow because the scarf already has tail ends. So I'm just going to very simply make a loop of ribbon and then wrap it in the center with another piece of ribbon and hot glue everything together in the back. So we're kind of faking a bow. We're making it in two steps here. And then just hot glue that little loop right in place. Now on the back, obviously, we don't want to see that ribbon during the fall. So cut it in half and then heat seal the ends so they don't fray. And so then during the fall, you can just fold those ribbon pieces back over the bow. And then in the winter, obviously, you can fold them back and secure them on the back of the snowman with a piece of tape. And then you can remove the top hat there too. So now we have a pumpkin stacked on one side and a snowman on the other. So here's my finished little craft. You can put this up, make it in the fall, and keep it up all the way through Christmas and into winter. So if you can find one of these little pumpkin stack wood cardboard cutouts at Dollar Tree, do grab it and make this craft. I hope you enjoyed watching this project come together. Until next time, happy making. Hey, thanks for watching this craft video. If you have a minute, do you think you could maybe press the like or subscribe button and then watch this next craft on the screen now?